Donald Trump told a rally in Ohio on Saturday that November's presidential election will be the most important date in U.S. history, painting his campaign for the White House as a turning point for the country. Days after securing his position as the presumptive Republican nominee, the former president also warned of a bloodbath if he is not elected, though it was not clear what he was referring to, with the remark coming in the middle of comments about threats to the U.S. auto industry. The date, remember this, November 5th, I believe it's going to be the most important date in the history of our country, the 77-year-old told rallygoers in Vandalia, Ohio, repeating well-worn criticisms that his rival, President Joe Biden, is the worst president. Criticizing what he said were Chinese plans to build cars in Mexico and sell them to Americans, he stated, "They're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it, it's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars." As Trump's comment gained traction on social media, Biden's campaign released a statement calling the Republican a loser at the ballot box in 2020, who then doubles down on his threats of political violence. He wants another January 6th, but the American people are going to give him another electoral defeat this November because they continue to reject his extremism, his affection for violence, and his thirst for revenge, the campaign said, referring to the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters in 2021. Later, Biden spoke at a dinner in Washington, where he also warned of an unprecedented moment in history. Freedom is under assault. The lies about the 2020 election, the plot to overturn it, to embrace the January 6th insurrection posed the greatest threat to our democracy since the American Civil War, he said. In 2020, they failed, but the threat remains. The 81-year-old, who has waved off concerns that he is too old for a second term, leavened his rhetoric with humor. "One candidate's too old and mentally unfit to be president," he said of the presidential race. "The other guy's me." Earlier this month, Trump and Biden each won enough delegates to clinch their party nominations in the 2024 presidential race, all but assuring a rematch and setting up one of the longest election campaigns in U.S. history. Among the issues, Trump is campaigning on his sweeping reform of what he calls Biden's horror show immigration policies, despite successfully pressuring Republicans to block a bill in Congress that included the toughest border security measures in decades. On Saturday, he invoked the border again as he reached out to minorities who have traditionally voted Democrat. He said Biden had repeatedly stabbed African American voters in the back by granting work permits to millions of immigrants, warning that they and Hispanic Americans are going to be the ones that suffer the most. For decades, Ohio had been seen as a bellwether battleground state, though it has trended more strongly Republican since Trump's White House win in 2016. The rally came a day after Trump's former vice president, Mike Pence, said he would not endorse his old boss for a second White House term. In Tuesday's primary, Moreno faces Secretary of State Frank LaRose and State Senator Matt Dolan in Tuesday's GOP primary. Saturday's rally was held by Buckeye Values PAC, a group that backs Moreno's candidacy. Using the stage, Trump said, "If I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country." He later added that if this election isn't won, "I'm not sure that you'll ever have another election in this country." At the rally, Moreno also praised Trump as a great American and slammed people in his party who were critical of him. "I am so sick and tired of Republicans that say, I support President Trump's policies but I don't like the man," Moreno said, joining the former president on stage. After videos of Trump's bloodbath statement went viral on social media, Biden's campaign released a statement, calling him a loser at the ballot box in 2020, who then doubles down on his threats of political violence. He wants another January 6th, but the American people are going to give him another electoral defeat this November because they continue to reject his extremism, his affection for violence, and his thirst for revenge, the campaign said, in part, referring to the 2021 Capitol attack. Former President Donald Trump claimed that he, not President Joe Biden, will protect Social Security and warned of a bloodbath if he loses in November as he campaigned for Senate candidate Bernie Moreno in Ohio. Trump, speaking on a wind-whipped airfield outside of Dayton Saturday, praised his chosen candidate in the race as an America First champion and political outsider who has spent his entire life building up Ohio communities. "He's going to be a warrior in Washington," Trump said, days after securing enough delegates to clinch the 2024 Republican nomination. Moreno faces Secretary of State Frank LaRose and State Senator Matt Dolan in Tuesday's GOP primary. LaRose and Moreno have aligned themselves with the pro-Trump faction of the party, while Dolan is backed by more establishment Republicans, including Governor Mike DeWine and former Senator Rob Portman. Saturday's rally was hosted by Buckeye Values PAC, a group backing Moreno's candidacy. But Trump used the stage to deliver a profanity-filled version of his usual rally speech that again painted an apocalyptic picture of the country if Biden wins a second term. "If I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country," he warned, while talking about the impact of offshoring on the country's auto industry and his plans to increase tariffs on foreign-made cars. Biden campaign spokesperson James Singer accused Trump of doubling down on his threats of political violence. He wants another January 6th, but the American people are going to give him another electoral defeat this November because they continue to reject his extremism, his affection for violence, and his thirst for revenge, Singer charged in a statement. Trump campaign spokesman Stephen Chung said that Trump had clearly been talking about the impact of a second Biden term on the auto industry and broader economy. "Crooked Joe Biden and his campaign are engaging in deceptively, out-of-context editing," he said. Republican in name only, and accused him of trying to become the next Mitt Romney. He also criticized the Dolan family, which owns Cleveland's baseball team, for changing its name from the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland Guardians. Trump was joined at the rally by Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who have both stumped with Moreno and are considered potential vice presidential candidates. Trump's decision to back Moreno marked a major blow to LaRose, who had taken a number of steps to win his favor. Just days after entering the Senate race, LaRose endorsed Trump for president, reversing an earlier stance that the state's elections chief should remain politically neutral. The next month, he fired a longtime trusted aide after old tweets surfaced in which the staffer criticized Trump. The winner of Tuesday's primary will face third-term Senator Sherrod Brown, viewed as among the nation's most vulnerable Democrats, in November. Brown, first elected in 2006 and uncontested in his primary this year, has managed to hold onto his seat even as the state has shifted to the right. In his most recent re-election in 2018, he defeated then-Rep. Jim Renacci by almost 7 percentage points. 2 years later, Ohio voted for then-President Trump by 8 points. "It's going to be a bloodbath in the country," said former United States President Donald Trump if he does not elected in the presidential election. While addressing a rally near Ohio's Dayton, he said, "Now, if I don't get elected, it's gonna be a bloodbath. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country," he said. However, it was not clear why the former president gave such an extreme statement while complaining about the automobile industry. Trump further stated that no Chinese vehicle will be sold in the country if he gets re-elected for the top post, Politico reported. It is noteworthy that the former president showcases a dark image of U.S. to attack the Biden-led government ahead of the presidential polls that are expected to be held in November this year. During election campaigns, Trump often highlights events of January 6 and denounces the 2020 election that he lost. On Saturday, he started his rally by showing a recording of January 6 prisoners singing the national anthem, Politico reported. Saluting the crowd, the former U.S. president announced he would issue pardons for Trump supporting hostages on the first day of his presidency. Referring to the people imprisoned in connection with the January 6 Capitol riots as hostages, Trump, in his opening remarks, said, "You see the spirit from the hostages. And that's what they are, hostages.